What does it truly mean to challenge yourself? It means to push yourself beyond your capabilities to learn and grow through determination, to continue to move forward through all the ups and downs. One way I've been able to challenge myself is through completing FNAF challenges, pushing myself to complete harder and harder modes. FNAF is one of the biggest indie horror series in the world. However, these games don't only have a horror aspect, they also have a challenge aspect, so much so that there's now an entire community based on these challenges. This is what the rankings look like for some of the vanilla games. Of course, there being UCN at the top, but second is Sister Location, which is also considered one of the least RNG modes in the entire series, and one of the more skill modes in the series. The mode in Sister Location is called Golden Freddy Very Hard Mode, and on release, it was seen by many as impossible. So we ended up getting an updated version of this mode where we get even more power, making it more possible. Then people got so good at that, they beat the original harder version, and then beat that with the worst possible luck, and people also beat that with insane amounts of power. So then, someone named Astaseries created a mod of Sister Location which was designed to be harder than the original Golden Freddy Very Hard mode in Sister Location, called Sister Location Super Custom Night. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Unreal channel. Today, I'll be telling you a story on how I beat one of Sister Location's hardest max modes to continue on my endless pursuit to push myself to beat some of FNAF's hardest challenges. Today's story will be taking place in the game, as mentioned before, Sister Location Super Custom Night, or SLSCN for short.
Hey, the max mode for this game is Super Golden Freddy. That mode is so free, even I can do it.
Well, you might think that is the case, which you'd be right. This is the hardest mode, which can be toggled in the menu. However, going to the extras menu, we can turn on the challenge Hyper Mode, changing the gameplay of the mode drastically, turning it from this into this. As you can see, the difference between these modes are huge. So I know that before, when I made the 3520 video, which a lot of you guys have seen, wait, and how many views is it on? $524. Guys, thank you so much for the support here on this channel. It really means a lot to me because I've put so much work into that video, and I just want to say thank you. But back to the challenge, let me talk about the basics of Sister Location before we move on to these modes. Let me talk about the basic mechanics of Sister Location before we move on to these modes. Now, if you played Sister Location before and already know how the game works, you can probably skip this section because we'll be breaking down how the base game works to understand the remake. Sister Location is the 5th installment in the Five Nights at Freddy's series and is the first one to have an unstructured night length, not being like the original. After beating the first 5 nights, completing the secret minigame, collecting the key, then beating the ended night, it unlocks the custom night, where we have to break down this max mode, Golden Freddy Very Hard mode. The first animatronic we'll be looking at is probably the hardest one in the game, being Funtime Freddy. Funtime Freddy, at the start of the night, will have a 50% chance to enter either the left or right hallway, indicated by these two sound cues. When attacking, Funtime Freddy has a 2 in 3 chance to use the voice line, "Hey Bonbon, go get him!" Meaning he's going to throw Bonbon at the door he's currently located in. "Hey Bonbon, go get him!" Or a 1 in 3 chance he uses the voice line, "Get ready for a surprise!" meaning he's going to throw Bonbon on the opposite side of where he's located.
Get ready for a surprise!
After attacking, switching sides from his original location.
Hey, Bonbon! Go get him! Knock, knock! Anybody home?
This brings a great deal of difficulty as we need to track where Funtime Freddy is. Okay, no, it's fine. Ballora starts progressing to your door, the music getting louder as she gets closer and closer, indicating how close she is to the door. Funtime Foxy is the hardest character in the night, being a progression character, slowly creeping closer and closer throughout the night. His progression timer counting down after 5 seconds of not checking his camera in Funtime Cove. If Funtime Foxy escapes the cove, he'll come charging at your door like Foxy from FNAF 1. Closing the right door on him, when this happens, will take some power from your office. Sending him back to Funtime Cove. This wastes a lot of power and also takes a lot of keyboard pressing the S key every 5 seconds to ensure Funtime Foxy does not progress. This doesn't seem so bad until we look at some of the other characters. Bidybab has 3 stages which indicates his progress in events, hearing a sound cue for every stage.
I don't want to play hide and seek. I'm going to find a way inside.
Closing the door on him after hearing the last sound cue, him bonking on the door, then his progress is reset. Then we have the camera characters. Minarina 1 will spawn in the top left side of the map, draining your oxygen exponentially, making the office harder or even impossible to see, requiring them to be controlled shocked to get rid of them. Electrobab will spawn on the opposite side of Funtime Freddy, and he will drain the power value throughout the night, also needing to be controlled shocked to make them go away. This power drain makes the night impossible if they're left for a long period of time, and I'd group Minarina 1 and Electrobab in the same category as their mechanic works relatively similar. You can tell when they've spawned when there's a danger sign next to both the power and oxygen values in the top left. Yendo spawns in the office after the camera's dropped, however cannot spawn 2 camera drops in a row, killing you after around 1 second of being left. Bonnet has a 2 in 3 chance to appear on every camera flip, moving from right to left. Once she reaches the far left of the screen, she jump scares you. Lolbit starts appearing on the office monitors. 3 seconds after 3 Lolbit faces appear on the monitor, this "please stand by" message appears. Then you lose the ability to close the doors, open the cameras, needing to type LOL on your keyboard or pressing the letters on the keypad in your office. Facing these 3 at the same time is what the community calls the Wombo Combo, and looks something like this. Now this mode will place either 564th or 393rd, depending on the patch you're playing on. But neither of these even compare to what we'll be doing today. Now, to an average player, this might seem incredibly difficult, needing a decent amount of skill to complete. So how does this remake change the game? Well, most of the original animatronics stay the same in the base max mode for this game. However, the max mode for this game is not Golden Freddy on the hardest difficulty. We'll be playing Hyper Golden Freddy. Overall, Golden Freddy Very Hard is required just for the foundation of what's to come in these future modes that I'll be explaining. So let me tell you what the difference is between the original version and Sister Location Super Custom Night. Sister Location Super Custom Night is a remake of the original Sister Location intended to be harder than its original counterpart, which I think has been done flawlessly. However, to make this harder, as the series, the developer added characters from the original FNAF series from games like FNAF 1 to FNAF 6, with the introduction of Freddy from FNAF 1, Withered Bonnie from FNAF 2, Phantom Foxy, FNAF 3, Nightmare Chica from FNAF 4, Old Man Consequences from FNAF World, and Afton from Pizzeria Simulator, also expanding the cast of the original Sister Location with introductions like Baby and Enid, also coming with a large amount of quality of life changes, which makes the overall feel of the night a lot smoother, removing a large amount of things that people were unhappy about in the original. Things like the custom cursor.
Played the game for more than 15 minutes at a time, the cursor would just start teleporting whenever I'd move. Look at this, dude. It fucking teleports. Why is it teleporting? Look, dude.
Also being able to adjust the volume from background music to jump scare sounds. Also being able to change the FPS in the game for a better experience and smoother gameplay. Now, moving on to the animatronic changes, as mentioned before, most of the original animatronics, except for Bonnet and Lolbit, are the same. Bonnet now can spawn from either the left or right side, traveling to the other side of the office, once off screen, jump scaring you. Lolbit now no longer disables doors and cameras, however playing a loud ringing sound which makes it impossible to hear sound keys like Funtime Freddy, Ballora, and Biddy Babs. Now we move on to the new additions to the cast. Baby starts a countdown from 3 down to 1. Once she plays her final sound cue, her eyes will glow in either of the hallways, needing to control shock her to get rid of her.
1.
Enid comes from the secret night in Sister Location after collecting the key. In night 5, they have a movement opportunity every 6 seconds, making a sound cue when choosing either of the doors or vents. If you hear another sound cue from a different side, that means they're rushing that side instead. A louder sound cue will play indicating they're right outside your door, and you should close the door on their interval, making a loud sound cue indicating that they've left the door. Now we get to what I believe is the hardest characters in the night. The bottom row. Freddy's here from FNAF 1, and in my opinion is one of the most annoying characters in the night. He will slowly get close to the door. When he's close, he'll reach the door, and a pair of eyes will glow, indicating that he's right outside. Closing the door on him for 1 second will make him go away. If the door is not closed on him for 4 seconds, he will jump scare you. Withered Bonnie is probably one of the hardest characters for beginning players, as he appears at one of your doors. Closing the door will stall him, but eventually he will get into the office, where you have to put the mask on, or fling your cursor to the top of the screen, which puts your mask on, just like in FNAF 2, giving you around 1 second to put the mask on. However, if you're too slow, he will jump scare you. Phantom Foxy is one of the harder characters to understand in this mode. He has a random chance to spawn on either sides of the office, requiring you to look at the opposite side for him to not jump scare you. However, just like in FNAF 3, he will not kill you, instead draining all of your oxygen, making it impossible to see, leaving you open for Yendo, Biddy Bab, or a Freddy death. The hard thing about Phantom Foxy is not knowing where the left and right side is. So after my experience, here's a diagram that I've drawn out for guidelines on where the left and right side is counted. Altogether, this challenge is very easy and only took me around 4 hours to beat, 4 5 AM runs over the course of a couple of days, and being done around 6 months ago. But I had other challenges to do, as you saw in my last video, taking up most of my time. This is probably one of the easiest challenges that I've done, unlike something like 3520 mode, placing at around 424 when writing the script. However, we're not playing Super Golden Freddy mode, we're playing Hyper Golden Freddy mode, taking the gameplay from this to this.
3, 1.
Now, we've discussed the different tiers to this game leading up to Hyper Golden Freddy. The ladder of Sister Location looking something like this. There being Sister Location very hard at the very bottom, Super Golden Freddy, and I'd say that Super Golden Freddy is around 3 to 4 times harder than base Golden Freddy mode. Well, I believe Hyper Golden Freddy is around 5 to 10 times harder than Super Golden Freddy, currently being placed at 125 when recording this. Therefore, I believe Hyper Golden Freddy is around 15 to nearly 20 times harder than the base Golden Freddy from the original Sister Location. So if any of you have beaten the original Golden Freddy, download Cheat Engine, change the game speed to 500, and that's what Hyper Golden Freddy feels like. To really look at other modes to compare this to, the base 5020 is placed at 432, which is quite a lot below Hyper Golden Freddy. So I think I can say this mode is quite the challenge. And compared to something I've done recently, 3520 mode is placed at 210, meaning that this is nearly twice as difficult as 3520. But why is this mode so hard? Well, by going to the extra menu and turning on the Hyper mode, it changes Super Golden Freddy to Hyper Golden Freddy, which is pretty much Super Golden Freddy, but instead of having the difficulty be at 20, it's at 40 instead. This turns everyone insanely fast, changing everyone's intervals to be way shorter, making the night a lot stricter, and having to play super fast, making the night a lot more chaotic and a lot more difficult. This means you need much more speed with your mouse and keyboard hands and a lot more brain power. Now, 2 things you must have to be able to survive the night: high levels of power and also where you are in the cycle, because yes, there is a cycle in this night, being very strict. Now, we know how all the characters work in the vanilla game and the introduction of the new characters. Now we can finally move on to the portion of this video, Hyper Golden Freddy, and its changes to the animatronics. First, Baby. Her changes is that her countdown is a lot faster than before, having a countdown every 5 seconds instead of 6 seconds. Her kill timer also going from 6 seconds to 5 seconds. Funtime Freddy cuts his intervals in half, attacking every 4 seconds instead of 8. Funtime Foxy now has even less of a stall timer, where his freeze timer remains the same of 3 seconds. Bonnet gets a 1.5 times multiplier to her speed, however no mechanics were added. Enid now moves every 5 second interval instead of 6 seconds. Biddy Babs have gotten the Funtime Freddy treatment and have also had their intervals cut in half. moving every 2 seconds instead of every 4 seconds. Electrobab and Minarinas have both had their intervals cut down from 10 seconds to 6 seconds. Yendo can now spawn on every single odd camera flip instead of having a cooldown. Lobby can now appear on the monitor every second and every 2 seconds after the first one appears. And now we go back to the hardest characters in the game, the bottom row. Freddy now moves in the hallway twice as fast as it used to, also giving half the time to close the door on it, going from 4 seconds to 2 seconds. One tip I have with Freddy is that not only does his eyes appear in the hallway, but he can also be visible in the cameras, meaning that sometimes if you catch him going to your left door, you can close him there while in the cameras instead of having to close the monitor. Withered Bonnie now enters the office a whole lot quicker and jump scaring after a whole 0.6 seconds. Phantom Foxy appears twice as often. However, a weird thing about his change is that in the menu it says the amount of time you are allowed to look at him is decreased. The weird thing about this is that you can stare at him the same amount of time as his non-hyper version. Afton, instead of appearing once per night, spawns once every hour at any time during that hour. All main consequences now has a 50% chance to spawn every 4 seconds. Also, if you fail to catch the fish, you won't be able to open the cameras for the rest of the night. Now, let's talk about the strategy with this night. As soon as the night starts, you'll hear Funtime Freddy move to a certain side. You'll be able to hear him going from either the left side or right side to left side. You'll need to keep track of this, as it'll be useful to know, as after the timer hits 6 seconds, after the in-game timer hits 6 seconds, which if you're not using a timer, is when Biddy Babs and Minarina spawn, open up the cameras and control shock in camera 6 for Minarinas, and the opposite closet of Funtime Freddy for Electrobab. Then placing your camera on camera 7 to stall Funtime Foxy's timer for 3 seconds. Make sure if you're using a timer, do a quick flip before 10-second interval, as any time after this, Withered Bonnie will appear in your office.
2.
This is so we can stall him for a little bit, so when we shock Minarina and Electrobab, we can trigger him entering the office then.
3. 2.
And also flipping the camera to stall Funtime Foxy right after this, because as soon as Withered Bonnie's attack is over, we only have a little bit of time where Funtime Foxy can still be stalled. And that's one of the 2 possible cycle types in this night. There can be either a normal camera cycle like this,
1.
or a Bonnie camera cycle, where after the cycle is over, Withered Bonnie will appear in your office, and Baby and/or Freddy will also be at the door.
3. 2. 1.
However, there's a lot more multitasking in this challenge, which is what I believe is the source of the difficulty in this mode. And it's not just following the cycle strictly throughout the night. There's a decent amount of variety with this night with Biddy Babs, Ballora, and Enid. The doors need to be closed on certain intervals, making Freddy and Funtime Freddy a lot harder to deal with. When starting this challenge, the runs were going pretty well. And every hour of playtime I had, I was getting to a new hour of the night. After an hour getting 1 AM, 2 hours getting 2 AM, and so on. No! No, so close to 3 minutes! Until I hit probably one of the biggest walls in my max moding career. Hyper Golden Freddy, 5 AM. Like, oh my god. No! 521! Oh my god. You're joking! You've gotta be kidding me. You've gotta be kidding me! 530! No! Oh! Now, I've only really had one wall which I've had while max moding, this being the 2 AM wall during 3520, taking me around 7 hours of playtime to get through, beating the night a couple more hours after that, and not really getting a 5 AM run. Even on my completion run, that was my first 5 AM. However, this was just not like 3520, where the real challenge of the mode was the real life experience that happened in my life, not the actual game. But this mode was just difficult for me, as I kept failing at 5 AM over and over and over again. It felt like being tormented and just stuck in a humiliation game, failing at the same hour again and again and again. And when I hit around the 10-hour of playtime mark, I realized what was going to happen. I was going to get this challenge into my HSC time, which for the non-Australians is the big final exams for all of your subjects. And I didn't want this challenge to chip into this time. I needed to do something in my actual life. So I set a limit on myself. I will play Hyper Golden Freddy every day until the start of my exams on the 16th of October. And I committed myself to the challenge to beat it. And around this time, I uploaded the quote-unquote start of my channel with my 3520 UCN recode video. And don't worry, that video is not the last one on UCN mods. There'll definitely be more coming. But while these runs happened, there was so much love and support from you guys, which firstly, thank you so much. I remember the last video I uploaded since then, getting that much support. But it also gave me a lot of pressure to make another video on time for everyone to watch, and didn't want everyone to wait too long for another one. So the more I failed at 5 AM again and again, the more and more I had thoughts in the back of my head that this is just another setback from uploading again, or maybe I'm not good enough for this mode, and that started to lead me down a dark spiraling staircase of anger at myself. Looking back at these clips after failing did make me think of something though. I wasn't gonna do what I did with 3520 and keep hitting my head against the wall until I beat the mode. I was gonna analyze my mistakes and work on how to improve as a player to beat this mode before the 16th. At this point, I had around 4 or 5 AMs, which is considered normal when beating a max mode, so I decided to pick apart these runs and realize all these runs died below the designated power values of the night, dying at 2%, 2.5, 5.3. All of these power values is lower than what it should be at this time, that being 35% at 1 AM, 67% at 2 AM, 50% at 3 AM, 33% at 4 AM, and 17% at 5 AM. But I have the cycle down pretty pat. How could I save more power? I was lost. So I asked the MML, or Max Mode List Discord, if they had any tips on how to save more power. And wouldn't you know it, the gods bestowed upon me the angel of BroDude5747. Now you may be asking yourself,
Who is this low-life mozo telling you how to save power in this mode?
well actually, he's the first person in the world to beat Hyper Golden Freddy, and then he was also the first person to beat Hyper Golden Freddy on the original patch. He's also the verifier of Blood 720 No Power Out, and that isn't even close to his hardest achievement. So getting advice from one of the top 50 best max mode players in the world was really special to me. And he said, to get more power, I need to do fun time Foxy flips to make sure he doesn't get out of the cove to steal power, which is what I did. But something more important, he said, more particularly ended, explaining that he won't leave the door until his 5-second move timer is over. That's right, the way Ended works in this night. Just in case you forgot, he picks a side indicated by a sound cue. He can change the side at this point. However, he's unable to re-pick the same side he's currently on. If he plays a sound cue at the door, after he's picked, he went to the hallway. After 5 seconds, he'll get closer to the doorway. But the key thing here is after he's entered the hallway and right outside your door, he'll be waiting for 5 seconds to then jump scare you. So what BroDude is saying is that if we know when Enid is in his final stage to save power, we can close the door right before his 5-second interval to get rid of him. This is not what I did on my previous attempts. Before I thought that this green running wouldn't have been necessary, but now I think it was. So now with this strategy, it was time to put everything I've learned throughout this challenge to the test on the final day. That if I have left on the final day, I had 1 day before my exam starts on the 16th. This is the 15th, the final day of the challenge before the deadline. Just one more day and one more run. Today I was feeling different than the entire week before this point. Something was off. My speed was unlike anything. I was on a roll, running through these hours and getting quite consistent, getting different 3 AMs, getting 4 AMs, taking a death to Enid before this run. While this run was happening in the back of my mind, I thought this was it. It's 5 AM. This is the last day that I could do this challenge. This was the end. It was cinematically perfect. One more day, one more run, and one completion. The time went to 5:30, and I thought it was over. My nerves started to kick in. I was starting to shake. It was starting to hit the later times in the night, but when I did my camera flip, I realized something. I was off cycle. I waited in the office for Bonnie to get closer so I can get back on cycle. However, that meant losing power from Electrobabs by not shocking them. Also meaning Funtime Foxy's out of his cove.
3, 2.
No! Oh! That's not enough to survive the night. So my run ended
547.
at 5:47.4 to a power out.
No, I missed cycle, and then my power just drained. Oh, it's double closing doors. Everything fell apart in the last minute, man.
12.6 seconds away from success. I was so fed up at this point, and the last day was over. Exam started up. I was forced to take a break from this challenge, which was just absolutely soul crushing. You can even hear it in my voice here in this clip. However, there was no tears, only disappointment in myself. I pretty much beaten it. Now I have to do it all over again after my exams. The only reason this is bad is that after my exams are over, I would have lost all my consistency and ability to play the game and get 5 AMs again. But I had to stop for 2 weeks. Now coming back to this challenge, the real question is if I can finish the challenge on time. It's just when it will happen. Or maybe I'll quit entirely. But no, I'm not quitting yet. I've had these thoughts about it while attempting this challenge back on the first day. But after getting warmed up, I realized I maintained my skill and could still do this, getting another 5 AM run. After looking back at this, I realized I'm only dying on these attempts because of power. But we already optimized the door closing. So how are we losing so much power towards the end of the night? Well, it's because of Funtime Foxy, with it Bonnie, Baby, Minarinas, and Electrobabs. These characters are terrible for the cycle, as they all require camera flips to deal with them, meaning sometimes you can get situations like this one, where Minarinas and Electrobabs are off cycle, and Withered Bonnie, and after checking on Funtime Foxy, he does his attack. However, since Electrobab and Minarinas are still up, our power is still getting drained, meaning we're losing a large portion of our power. Now, let me explain how the code of this game works, especially with Funtime Foxy. When the cameras are not up, the game is in office state. Pressing S on your keyboard or flipping the monitor up with your mouse, the game is still in office state until the cameras are displayed. Then the game changes to what I call camera state. Now, how I'm guessing Funtime Foxy works is if the Cove camera is selected in the monitor and the S key is pressed, or the camera is open with the mouse, the game checks what camera needs to be displayed on the screen. It sees the camera is selected on Funtime Cove and stores Funtime Foxy. The only thing wrong with this is how Withered Bonnie's code works, which is if Bonnie is ready to attack and the game changes from camera state to office state, he will enter doing his attack, which is why situations like this happen. So, how do I optimize this mode even further? I did a little bit of research and lab testing to figure out how to simultaneously open the cameras to store Funtime Foxy, but also not enter the cameras to spawn Withered Bonnie. But how could I do these both at the same time? Now, what just happened? Withered Bonnie was ready to attack. I flipped the cameras up and down super quickly, but Withered Bonnie didn't spawn in the office to do his attack. This is called a zero frame flip, where you press the S key on the keyboard and flick the mouse to the bottom of the screen, which meets both of the requirements, opening the cameras to store Funtime Foxy, however, never entering or exiting camera state to spawn Withered Bonnie. This was huge, and the next day I got a really good run, a 5-minute 40-second run with 5.4% power. This is exactly power pace and was definitely enough to get a completion. However, I totally forgot about which stage Annan was in and died to nerves. But that was okay, because I expected to get a couple more 5AMs until the completion. Even with this refined strategy, I still haven't mastered it, so it's okay to get a couple more fails. But this took so long to break. And to really put in perspective of how long this challenge was taking me, here's a graph of my playtime hours in this game to show you how long this final barrier was taking. As you can see in this graph, it's very exponential, meaning the further I got through the hours, the barrier after it only got larger and larger. After 4 AM, it only took me 4 hours of playtime to get a 5 AM. However, for me to get to my inevitable completion, it took over 14 hours of playtime. And so many 5 AMs later, and this run just sunk into that time, making the ending just seem so much further and further away. But none of these fails made me more angry than this run a day after the 540. Now, the 540 may have been 20 seconds away from completion, which is fine. That's nearly half of the hour. But that wasn't as bad as 6.2 seconds away from completion with a 5:53.8. No! Oh! No! 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 Oh my god, man! You're joking me! 5:53.8! This was pretty bad, and was due to a cycle offset which I had at 3 AM, where I lost track of Freddy and shocked his side instead of Electrobabs, making me lose a lot of power. But what if I told you that was not even the worst fail of any challenge I've ever done? The 4 AM 3520 was pretty bad, and even the 553 was pretty bad. How about Hyper Golden Freddy 557.7? That's the worst fail. That's got to be the worst fail, right? There's no way. Oh my goodness. That was a bad fail. That is probably my worst fail, right? Dang. Yeah, that's my worst fail. That's my worst fail. 2.3 seconds. Wow. Dang. That's my worst fail. There's my This fail was so bad. But as you can see from the clip, I'm not as angry as I was in the fail before. This is what I believe is one of the greatest skills to have when doing any type of challenge. It's to not crash out, it's not to get so angry, then quit the mode. I believe what separates the average player from the good player isn't their skill. However, that is true. A lot of it does come from skill. It's also the ability to keep yourself composed at the end to complete the mode. That's why in most challenges, the hardest part of the mode is 5 AM, as the nerves are at its highest. Some modes, there's some type of buff, or in some cases, visual changes that indirectly tell the brain you're at the end of the run and there is no way that you can pretend you're in another hour. A way this mode does it is with the timer. Having to keep up with Enid's intervals all while the night's going on, and having to stare at that timer and knowing how close I really was got me nervous. But the ability to keep yourself composed is what separates the average player from the good player. Now with all my skills learned from this mode, from power saving to cycle managing, and even new skills like 0 frames flipping to stall, all to be put together in one run. I've had so many fails close to the end at this point. 14 5 AMs. Getting so close, but building the muscle memory to keep going. Just needed to not give up. We passed all the hours, doing 0 frame flips perfectly, keeping perfectly in the cycle, getting to 4 AM, going to 5 AM with 18% power. This is probably around 1.5% above power pace to beat the night. When I realized this, my heart started to race. This is one of the only runs which got to 5 AM with this much power. Enough power to survive the rest of the night. Being perfectly on cycle, nothing can stop this completion now. Closing Freddy off one more time at 5:47. Perfectly closing the door and ended at 5:55. I knew when I saw in that timer what was to come. My mind may have had thoughts of losing, but my body didn't. All the hours put in leads to this final Funtime Freddy door close. The last thing standing in my way of winning was one singular second to close Funtime Freddy's door. And with that final door close, it was over.
Go get him!
3, 2.
Oh my god! Oh my days! My camera fell. Oh my god! Yes! Oh, I did it! Let's go, man! Oh my days! Oh my god! I'm pumping, boy. I'm pumping. Oh my god! Let's go, man. Let's go. Speed up the credits, man. Oh my days. Wow. And that was the end of Hyper Golden Freddy, my new hardest max mode that I've completed. But this mode's difficulty, for me personally, was not the speed or precision required. It was about the patience and determination. This was a lot more difficult than 3520. In fact, it's nearly 100 places higher than 3520, which just shows how much harder this mode is. But really what it matters at the end of the day, and what I care about, is how much better of a player I've become throughout this challenge. However, if you remember the ladder I showed before of the different levels of Sister Location's difficulty, it may show that Hyper Golden Freddy's at the top. That's because that's only half of the Sister Location ladder. And your Sister Location isn't over yet, and there's still more to come. But if you have enjoyed this video and want to support me to continue making more, I do ask to subscribe and like the video. I do appreciate all of you, and I'll be seeing you all in the next video.